Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest Honey and Stag digital book launch. Thank you so much to Kelly Lacey, who puts these launches together so marvelously. I am extremely grateful for that. Thank you, Kelly. Our launch today is one that is very special for me because it's not only one of my favorite authors, crime fiction authors, but it's also somebody who I consider to be a very special friend. So if you would, please, everyone, welcome into the studio, Michael J Malone.
Hello.
Hello, Michael. It is so absolutely fabulous to see you here today, and even more so to be able to celebrate with you the launch of your latest novel, A Song of Isolation, published by the wonderful Arenda Books. How is it feeling?
It's feeling great, but weird to be doing everything facing a computer rather than facing an audience. But
Mhm.
hey, you roll with the punches. That's the way life is just now, and you just get on with it.
Isn't it? That is exactly how we're needing to do it, because I know that at Honey and Stag, we are keen to get the word out about fabulous publications, supporting authors and supporting publishers. It means the world to us. So if we have to do it this way, this is the way we do it.
Well, and can I just say thank you to both of you for doing it, because we need all the help we can get to get the word out there. So thank you for all your hard work. It's very much appreciated.
It is a pleasure, and I value being able to be here with you today. Just to let viewers know that as we go on through our time together in the launch, please do post your questions and your comments, because Michael is more than happy to respond to those, so please do so. And as is now the custom for our Honey and Stag launches, we have some special guests with us as well to put some questions to Michael. Two fabulous book bloggers with us. We have Mary Picken and Danielle Price, two bloggers who are also great supporters of Arenda Books as well. So it gives a lovely feel to this launch, both for Michael and, as I say, to the publisher Arenda Books. Michael, you're a prize-winning poet and an author, and you have two series and a number of standalones to your name. Now, I know you best through your standalones, A Suitable Lie, A House of Spines, After He Died, In the Absence of Miracles, and now A Song of Isolation. And before we delve into the book in question, A Song of Isolation, I just wonder, could you explain to us that difference? Is there a difference for you in writing a series or writing the standalones? How do you approach that?
I think the difference is it's been a while since I wrote any of the series, to be honest. But when I was doing both, writing the series was kind of like slipping back into a pair of comfy slippers. I knew the world, I knew the characters, I knew how they would react to things. So just a matter of thinking of the premise and then go. Whereas with the standalones, it's starting from scratch every time. So a whole new cast of characters, a whole new theme that I'm exploring. So commonalities are that I never plan. So I'm always just kind of like just feeling my way into the story, I guess, as I write it. And I'm hoping that if I don't know what's going to happen, then how are the readers going to know? So that's the way I think about it.
Mm-mm. So that idea of a whole new cast of characters, and knowing the way that in each of these standalones, you focus on questions, that are not the easiest of questions maybe to focus on. And as I say, in our discussion and with our special guests, we'll look more at that. But just before I ask you to do the first reading, I'd just like to let viewers know that 2 years ago, Michael and I went on a mini book tour together to South Wales. Dr. Noir's Travelling Crime Show. We had so much fun.
Yeah, it was
and
great.
and I'm really grateful again for your company. But I remember you talking to me about this idea.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and the joy, Michael, the utter joy that when an idea that's been embryonic or has been roaming around an author's head, actually, when it becomes this thing, this entity, it's like, oh my God, and just to prove to you that I was listening as well, even though I was driving, to prove to you that I was listening. So it's a wondrous, wondrous moment to see this come into being. And I think this is the perfect moment in our time together now. If you'd be so good as to do that first reading.
Okay, right. So perhaps I should talk a wee bit about what the book's about. So the book opens and it concerns our main characters are Amelie Hart and her boyfriend Dave. Amelie is a kind of early retired movie star, I guess, is a good way of describing her. So she stepped back from the limelight because she found it's not all it's cracked up to be. Settles in for the quiet life with Dave, a younger man. He's an accountant and very different to the men she's possibly been seen with in the gossip columns, etc. So, but life has throws up obstacles in her way for the quiet life, and her boyfriend is horribly accused of molesting the next door neighbour's little girl. So the first reading I'm going to give is from chapter 1. And Amelie and Dave are in the house on the sofa, and there's a knock at the door. Neither of them want to go and answer it for very different reasons. So anyway, door, Amelie repeated. Oh, it's probably someone trying to sell us something. Ignore it. They'll go away, Dave said. But it's Good Friday and nearly dinner time. Who's going to be selling stuff at this hour? Somebody who's desperate, Dave said, sitting back in his seat. He looked at her. You okay, honey? Something bothering you? She crossed her arms, thinking she wasn't ready to unburden herself in case she said something she would later regret. When they'd met, she was Amelie Hart, movie star, one-hit wonder to be precise. Against all the odds and after a few flops, her fourth movie had hit the public consciousness, and the great unwashed couldn't get enough of her. Her dream came true, except the dream came with a whole lot of baggage she couldn't deal with, most of which Dave knew nothing about. And that was why he couldn't understand why she was always reluctant to answer the door. It sounded again. Amelie turned away from it and pulled her knees up to her chest, as if that might form some kind of protection. Jesus, they're not for giving up, are they? Dave looked over his shoulder in direction of the front of the house. He got to his feet as if it was a huge effort. I'll get it then, will I? Please, Amelie said. Whoever it was, Amelie hoped it was something important, something big enough to distract Dave from asking a question she wasn't sure how to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Michael. So in that reading that you've given us, you introduce us to the dynamic that is already changing or in play between Amelie and Dave. But before we look at them as a couple, I wonder if you don't mind if I go back to the fact that you open the book with a short prologue that is full of menace. And it gives us a little bit of insight into why Amelie might be the way that she is, and something that maybe that Dave is totally unaware of. The whole idea there of a stalker. And I wanted to ask you about the research that you did around that notion of stalking and the kind of editing or self-editing that you do before you even offer this up to the publisher and your editor, to ensure that you give us that start that is such a jolt?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, to be honest. Well, first of all, in terms of research, I didn't really do much, to be honest. But I mean, you'd have to be from the moon to not realise that stalking goes on. And actually, in the past, there's a woman I know from my local town. Her name's Anne Moulds. Now, Anne has been responsible single-handedly for having law passed to protect people from stalking. She was stalked herself years ago and has campaigned tirelessly for the UK and across Europe to sort of to put in protections in place. So I did meet with her a couple of years ago, and she told me her story. She's a remarkable woman, actually, and she's done amazing things. So we had tip to Anne, and I guess listening to her and listening to other people, and I have looked into things like domestic violence before. So I know how damaging and how fearful people can be within that situation. So I guess it was playing on that a wee bit to sort of bring that to life for the reader.
Thank you. Now, so Amelie, being that actor, I wanted again to ask you, why did you choose a character to be from that background? Because you could have chosen any profession, but the whole notion of celebrity and the world of celebrity, was it a very conscious choice before? You say you don't plan, but I wonder, again, the choice of that context or background, was that conscious, or did it just appear as you went along?
I think it was conscious for because that whole notion of celebrity is something that actually bugs me incredibly. It's that thing that people who, because they're famous, they deserve more attention. They deserve we give them an importance that I think is not merited. They're just look good on a screen or they perform well in a certain field. Why do we focus so much attention on them? And it really annoys me. So when I was thinking through the story before I kind of kicked it off, I wanted to sort of maybe examine that a wee bit and examine how the impact on this scenario as it unfolds would be much worse because of the celebrity, because of the focus that gives. And I think that amplifies the situation incredibly. If this had been an ordinary individual, the story would still have had power. But I think giving it that added focus from all of us who just want to watch and get all these people's lives detailed. And even when you think back to Princess Diana, I would after she died, I would hear all these people or read all these people saying, "Oh, it was such a shame that the press drove her to her death." And I'm thinking, no, you're the one who gave the press that permission to do it. So without that sort of attention from the public, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, very much so. That tandem force.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't buy the newspapers, if we didn't log on or click on to and give things the number of views, then those stories wouldn't have the power. That two-sided aspect to it is very important. I do, I really think you are one of those authors that holds the mirror to us as a society, and whilst we're thoroughly enjoying a story that you've written, that there are times when it is extremely uncomfortable, and I want to say thank you for making it uncomfortable, because it's, I think it's very easy for us to point fingers elsewhere without actually considering our own you know, complicity maybe in certain
Yeah, and it's
aspects.
that whole saying that if you're got your hand up, pointing your finger, there's three fingers pointing back at you.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, so think and consider.
yes,
So Dave is accused, as you've told us, of this abuse, and Amelie goes into hiding, does she not? At some point in the story,
yeah.
and she goes to the continent, and I was just keen again to find out why you sent her in that direction. What was behind your choice of that place?
Well, that was entirely selfish.
Well done. Yes.
I have a thing about France. I'm a Francophile, and
Mm,
I haven't been for such a long time. And when I first kind of thought about this book, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, so a friend invited me over to stay at theirs. Is a beautiful wee place near Carcassonne, um, and and a fascinating little town near that called Limoux. And I was originally thinking about saying it there, but then sort of there was a bit of a distance between that and the actual writing the book. And it so happened that there was a friend who was over from Bordeaux, and lives in her mother lives in Ayr. So she got in touch and said, "Do you fancy a coffee?" I think she just wanted to get away from her kids, to be honest. So sorry, Claire, if that's not true. So anyway, we met up and had a coffee, and I was saying to her, "Look, I'm thinking about writing this book, and I want to set it in France because it just gives me an excuse to go there again." So, what's that? Where would you've travelled right throughout the country? Where would you recommend? And she said, "Well, come and stay at mine." So I was like, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, we've just put on this kind of wee bit at the front, a bedroom and bathroom for my mother. When she comes to visit, it's empty. You're welcome to it." So that was arranged, and then she said, "What is your character going to do while she's over here?" I said, "Well, she's going to have to look for work at some point." She was right. Okay, what kind of thing might she do? I says, "Well, she's only qualified to act. There's nothing much else that she's done." So it happens that Claire, this friend, works, and she's lived in France since she was about 19. So her French is perfect. And so she works in the wine industry. And she said, would she maybe like want to go and work at a chateau or something? I was like, well, that's a great idea. She says, leave it with me. So she came back about a few days later and said, right, there's this chateau just outside Bordeaux called Chateau Smith Holafite. And they would be happy to have you for a few days.
wow. Yeah.
So I didn't realise what a big deal this place was until I went there. It was just gorgeous, and but it turns out the chateau is top in their class for wine in the world. Nearly every year, so they do have an astonishing operation there, and the surroundings are just beautiful. And oh man, I just felt so privileged to spend a few days there. I just spent 3 days cycling around the vineyard, walking through. There's a forest, Forêt de Sang, just nearby, where they sort of engage all the senses. And the owner's daughter has a spa on the grounds, so it's 5-star. So I went there and had my lunch and my dinner every day. It was just amazing.
Do you know, Michael? I love the fact that knowing again, you know, the difficult subject matter of the novel, and I know the way that you pour yourself into your writing. I'm just pleased that you know, maybe writer's privilege or recompense. I think, you know, that you got the chance to make this decision, go there,
Yeah.
and have those experiences. That pleases me tremendously. Yeah, I like that. Another question that I have for you, again, around your choices, is the split timeline that we find in the novel between 2010 and 15 and 19. And again, it's like, you know, why choose that? Because, you know, the timeline that you could have chosen, did it need to be almost 10 years
Yeah, it kind of did. I think there was, first of all, there was to really demonstrate the implications of what happened. So we start off in 2010, and that's when the prologue is, and we learn about Amelie's stalking experience. So then she needs to process that, come to terms with that, step back from the public eye, and then rebuild her life. And that's when she meets Dave, and that's when the next terrible thing happens. And then we need to sort of move forward in time again. So because Dave's in, well, I can't say too much. Oh, nearly gave away. So, so the timing for that structure, it was required really to demonstrate the effects of the events, basically.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Now, the whole notion of the victim, and who is the victim, and whether there is, just one victim in this. But let's turn. I do want to come back to Dave, because I think it's important that we speak about him. But Damaris, am I pronouncing the name correctly?
I believe so. I've never actually heard the name spoken out loud, so it's like
I was just thinking, Damaris, Damaris. We'll go with Damaris, and then
Damaris.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about who I think we would perceive as maybe, would we perceive as the key victim? Tell me your thoughts on this.
Okay, again, without too much in the way of spoilers, so Damaris is the little girl at the heart of the allegation, and even the name itself, I chose that just to sort of demonstrate a little bit of pretension in the parents, because she's living in a very posh part of Lanarkshire, just outside Glasgow. And again, it's that whole aspirational aspect of the parents even living there, because they can't really afford it, as you find out. So, and that sort of whole side of the story came from the research. When I was looking into this whole scenario, I came across a couple of examples where something similar had happened. And I kept thinking about the little girl at the heart of that, and thinking, gosh, how long ago was this, and what kind of impact has that had on her? And I think it's important to demonstrate that as well, because she is a victim, regardless of how the story turns out, and whatever motivation was going on for this to happen, and whatever the truth actually is, she is a victim, and that is going to have profound effects on her life. And I felt it was important to demonstrate that. And this book is all about the demonstration of the implications of this allegation. So, and I was very keen that was the case. The sun's shining on. Maybe I should close my blind a wee bit.
Do you wish to? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please do. Please do.
Sorry about that. It was
No
quite
worries.
dark. It was quite dark earlier on, but now the sun seems to be coming back out.
Yeah. You were just getting a beautiful glow. It was moving up your face. It was lovely.
Yeah.
And so, okay, thank you for a little bit of insight into her. And if we come back to Dave, he is not a celebrity. As if you read in any of the publicity, it's how Amelie surprises everybody by choosing just a regular guy.
Yeah.
And again, was it a conscious choice for you almost to create for us an everyman? He could have been anyone.
Yeah, and I think anyone could find themselves in this situation, and I think it compounds it when Amelie is so famous, and he's just an ordinary guy, and I think that comparison, and it's almost that as observers we're looking into the world of fame, and we're consciously, constantly, I should say, questioning these people and their choices. Why are they doing that? What are they doing there? What's that all about? Judging, assessing, all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking, as a public, we'd be looking into that situation and think why we should choose a younger man. Well, there's maybe some reasons for that would come up very obviously. But why somebody that's not in the public eye? So, and I think part of that is to demonstrate that truly Amelie's had enough. She doesn't want to be connected with that world anymore, and that's why she chose someone who wasn't in the public eye, just an ordinary guy who's led a sort of quite an uninteresting life. He's an accountant, for goodness sake. I mean, no disrespect to any accountants out there, but we have this assumption that they're going to be quite straight-laced. I've met a few in my time, and that's not the truth, but that's the assumption that we have.
Very much so. It's the kind of profession that is very steady, and yeah, there's none of this excess, none of the, it's very measured.
Well,
because
there is, but we just don't sort of see that. That's the assumption we make.
Yeah, because of what they do, and we expect that to reflect in their character as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, it's very difficult because not wanting to give too much away from this incredible story, but you manage very much. Well, there's two things. First of all, let me ask this: the fact of the reaction towards her. The allegation is made about him, but she is implicated, or is she implicated? But the public and the reporting of it mean the way that that people react to her. She's not charged, but people react to her. That was I mean, again, is in your research, is this what happens? Is this how we react to people that are related or in some way involved with the person that's charged with this kind of offence?
Well, it can be, yes, absolutely. And I think there's that whole thing, like, people are going to assume it's true, then they're going to assume she knows something about it. And if she did know something about it, why didn't she stop it? And if she didn't stop it, maybe she's involved. And there's that whole chain of thoughts that they have. And when terrible things happen, and particularly around this kind of allegation, we can't believe women would be complicit in that. So that, and to some degrees, we talk about male criminal acts a lot, and it gets a lot of attention. So therefore, it's almost by exception we expect women to be better.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but unfairly. And then when they're not, then it's like the sky falls in on them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So to some degree, they're judged even more harshly
than
men, which is utterly bizarre. But we do. And I guess I was kind of playing on that, and also with the whole celebrity online thing and the utter nonsense and horrible stuff that people in the public eye get, men and women. And I think there's a lot of chat about how much more crap women get online than men. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think it's different kinds of abuse that men and women get, because there was a thing about politicians last year about how much female politicians got worse abuse than men. But then there was a piece of study by, I think it was Salford University, that said that actually the male politicians got more. And David Lammy in particular was the worst affected, because the abuse online tends to be for men, tends to be about physical stuff. So bullies pick up on the things you're going to be afraid of. So for men, it's physical violence. For women, it's sexual violence.
Yes.
So the research that I've read about online stuff suggests that that's the case. But anyway, regardless of, people in the public eye just get a ridiculous amount of crap online, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So you need to have a strong stomach to deal with it, and that's part of Amelie's experience throughout this. So again, it's kind of that whole thing about when you're writing a novel, you get your characters up a tree and then you throw sticks at them, and that was just more stuff getting thrown at her to make her life even more difficult.
Can I just say, though, before I get you to do your second reading, I so appreciate the level of research that you do into, you know, the issues that that you raise in your work. It is very clear that kind of research isn't just like on the back of a fag packet, but so thank you for that. Michael, take us to your next reading, if you will.
So so at this point, this is just after Amelie wanting Dave to go and answer the door. Now, what we find out in the next chapter is that Dave has a little velvet box in his pocket, and he's kind of grasping because he knows and he senses that there's problems in the relationship, and he's thinking that a marriage proposal will sort it out. He'll get an answer one way or another, and he'll know where he is. So anyway, he thinks about how they met, all that kind of stuff, as he's going to the door. To pick the right part here. So their eyes met and hearts collided. It helped that he had no idea who she was. Most of his time was spent at work, and what free time he did have was countering the effects of sitting hunched over a computer by training down at the local rugby club. So the world of film and TV celebrity completely passed him by. It must have been all that fresh air. Why else would he have taken one look at this amazing woman and asked her if she wanted to go and see the first thing he thought of, the local reindeer herd? Amazingly, she said yes, and the rest was very public history. But the most recent part of that history was worrying. There were too many times when he entered a room and she'd hurriedly finish the conversation she was having on her phone, a phone that was more than ever stuck to the side of her head. The way she covered up whenever she came out of the shower, whereas nudity had never bothered her before. Then there were the long silences when the air between them had always been filled with words and laughter. He'd asked her if she needed to get back into that world. It's not all glamour, you know, she'd said as she tucked a strand of flaxen hair behind a perfect ear. Dave could watch her all day doing simple things like that. He'd joke with her it was because she was half French. Full breeds just didn't have that exoticism, he'd say. There was an effortless grace to her that ordinary humans lacked, and there was a good reason the camera loved her. It's beyond boring and stressful, Amelie said. Worrying whether people will like your hair, your dress, or even the bloody shade of lipstick you're wearing is exhausting. No, she went on to say, her charity work and her yoga were where her life was at for the foreseeable. Exhausting it may have been, but Dave knew Amelie well enough to see that whatever she had in her life at this point, no matter how much she protested, it wasn't enough for her. And worryingly, he was no longer sure that he was enough for her anymore. The letterbox creaked open and a voice boomed, "Mr. Robbins, it's the police. Will you please open up?" Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. It's at this point that I am going to leave you for a little bit. And I am going to invite our first special guest, book blogger extraordinaire, Mary Picken, to enter the studio, and she has some questions to probe you further on A Song of Isolation. Yeah. So I will see you later.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Michael. Good to see you.
You too.
I absolutely loved A Song of Isolation.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it's going to fly. It's certainly, if the reviews are anything to go by, it should be a massive, massive success.
Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to probe really the questions about your writing more than this book, because I read somewhere that you had 16 years of writing and getting rejections. So my first question really is, what drives you to write in the face of that?
Oh, good question. I think it was a determination to see my work in print. Because I think even since I was a small boy, I remember holding a book and gosh, I can't remember what age I would have been, maybe 6, 7, 8, as young as that, and thinking one day I want to produce one of these. So, and when I was at school, I would always write more essays than I needed to, and in fact, I've got a twin sister, and I used to write her English essays as well. So I just really enjoyed writing and sort of using the written word. And then it wasn't until 96. Life kind of got in the way, as it does. And also that belief that it's not people like me who become writers. It's people with an education. It's people, those and such as those. So I never quite believed that it was possible. But then that drive to be a published novelist just kept at me. So I say when it was 96, actually, I joined the local writers club, having written about 10,000 words of a novel which turned out to be In the Absence of Miracles, actually. And then just going to the lectures and talks and going to writers groups and all that kind of stuff. Just the drive to see my words in print. And I used to have daydreams where I would imagine myself in a bookshop at a signing table and having people queuing up to have their book signed. And it was focused. Like, I mean, there were days when I thought, oh, I'm wasting my time. It's just not going to happen. But that drive to see a book with my name on it just wouldn't go away. So I just kept practicing and learning and reading about writing and going to workshops. And I think what helped a wee bit was like when the poetry started to take off. So a novel can be anything from 3 months to a year's kind of work. So the rewards from that, they're a long time coming. Whereas a poem, I could write a poem, get it published, and then get that validation and reward, if you like, much quicker. So I think that kind of helped me going, actually, in terms of like seeing myself as a future novelist.
Yeah, brilliant. God, that's such tenacity, though. It's really, really impressive.
Well, there were a few duvet days in that time, to be honest.
I can imagine, yeah. Your most recent books have all tended to look at events, issues with a less than obvious lens. When an idea comes into your head for a book, does it come with that lens specifically attached?
It has for some of them, yes. So let me just think through them. A Suitable Lie, that was after hearing a radio interview where a man was talking about being beaten up by his wife. So that led me down that path. In the Absence of Miracles was a kind of similar type of thing. And I think as a novelist, I'm always trying to work out, like, there's so many good books out there and there's so much competition. And it's trying to think of it a different way. Excuse me, my voice is a bit croaky today. I think my asthma's maybe playing up with the damp. Anyway, so, and I think it's trying to think of a different angle, a different approach, something that's not been done. I'm kind of running out of ideas, to be honest, but maybe I shouldn't say that. Karen, stop listening.
I'm sure that's not true.
So But I'm also aware that some of these books are from the perspective of a man caught up in these situations, and I think that's driven by the fact that in a lot of modern crime fiction, the men are at the heart of the bad stuff, and I want to,
as in life, to be fair.
yeah, but they're also lesser so in fiction. In life, they're actually more likely to be victims of violence, murder, all these kind of things. And so I wanted to look at the male as vulnerable and how that was expressed.
Yeah.
So that's been part of it as well.
Interesting. Thanks. You write beautiful prose.
Well, thank you.
And as you were discussing with Jacky, we know you also write poetry. So my question is, do you think that your lyrical tendencies, if I can call them that, prejudice you when it comes to recognising your books as crime fiction?
Oh gosh, I don't know actually. You'd have to ask other people that.
This is a question about why you aren't better recognised within the crime fiction community.
Right. I genuinely find that difficult to answer. I think you'd have to ask other people. For me, it's just part of the. I love it's that whole thing about. I remember years ago I was giving a workshop to kids and describing or trying to describe what poetry was, and a little boy said he was left a wee light went on in his head, and he said, "Aye, it's words that taste good." And
that's
that's
perfect.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of like obviously you don't want the words to get in the way of the book and the experience. The words, you have to be judicious in how you do this. But there are times when the phrases just pop into my head like a gift from the word God, and it's I just love it when that happens. So I'd find it difficult to pare that down and pare it away completely. It's and the books that I enjoy a good story well told, lots of action, good characters. But when the author paints pictures with the words, then I'm just going to fall in love with the book. If they do everything else, and that, I'm just going to love the whole experience.
No, I'm with you absolutely, and your books taste delicious.
And they're calorie free.
That's me done. I'm going to hand you over now to Danielle Price.
Thank you, Mary. It's nice seeing you.
Questions.
Thank you. Danielle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Like Mary said, I'm Jacky. I loved A Song of Isolation, as you know.
Thank you.
Malone Mondays, the whole thing last year. Loved them. Like Miriam, going off like your process maybe, and you're writing rather than just this book.
Mm-hmm.
My first question is, you incorporate a lot of real life, quite dark themes into your novels. I'm just wondering why you think it's so important to highlight these in your books for the readers.
Well, I think I'm driven mostly by from the point of view of telling a story that's maybe a wee bit different. So that comes first and foremost, because I think it's dangerous to approach this with, I have a message and you will read and understand my message, because nobody wants a lecture. Nobody wants to be hit over the head with a theme. So I tried to present the case, as it were. I tried to demonstrate the issue and leave it up to the reader to come to it themselves. Because, I think it's important to, and I think that's something that crime fiction does very, very well, and that's look at issues, social issues, whatever, that maybe other genres don't, and is told through that prism of perhaps a crime in the background or a crime in the forefront, which sometimes makes the lesson, if there is one, drop with a more profound impact. So you're not aware you're being handed a lecture or handed a lesson or whatever. It's assimilated through the story, and I think when we're given examples rather than a scientific sort of explanation, it's much more palatable to our brains, and we take it in. And it's the same with history. If you're reading a historical novel, that sense of time and place comes to you in a much more palatable way than if you're reading a sort of a history sort of textbook, I think. So I think it's a different kind of power.
And I think it connects the reader more on an emotional level.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just what I was struggling to say, Danielle. You nailed it.
Well, talking about emotional, you're right, really in-depth, three-dimensional characters. If you could go back and check in on a character that you've written, who would it be and why?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. All of them, because I've put them through such an emotional ringer. It'd be nice to know that they were okay. I think I always try to finish off with a redemptive note, a sort of hint that things will eventually be okay. But even so, it would like Andy in A Suitable Lie. Has he met someone nice now? And John, in the absence of miracles, has he managed to deal with his demons and settle down with this woman who was such a support to him as he went through his trials there? So I think, yeah, those two, John and Andy.
I think they'd be my two as well. Yeah, definitely. And finally, why, like, all your titles are quite poetic and they're my favourite titles. Why the Song of Isolation? Like, where did that come from?
That actually came from, I was struggling for a title for this book, actually. And there was a scene that I was writing, and there's a part in the book where Amelie is in Bordeaux and she's in this place called the Place de la Martyre de la Résistance. I said that in half French and half Scottish, didn't I? Anyway, it's an actual place, and there's a beautiful church, Saint-Surin, and she was sitting in this park watching people, and there was music coming from the church, and she was imagining herself just listening to this church and the birds and whatever, just as a song of isolation. And I thought, there's the title. It just came to me through the writing of the prose. And then I realised how well it fitted, because we have Dave, who's isolated in prison, Damaris, who's isolated from everyone because of everyone's treating her differently because of this allegation, with kid gloves and all that kind of stuff. And then Amelie, who's, although she's in a city, a beautiful city, she's very much on her own. So it really worked well within that. I was a wee bit worried when lockdown happened and we were all put into isolation effectively, that people would see that title and think, oh, I don't want to go there. Yeah. But hopefully that's not on there. That's not an association that people make.
Not at all. Well, thank you for answering my questions. I think Jacky wants you back.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks for
this.
I do indeed want you back. Always, always, always. But again, massive thank you to Mary and Danielle for their questions and yeah, just drawing more out of you, which is wonderful, wonderful. I should come on and say that doing a book giveaway for this launch, and that Michael will do the honours of choosing the best questions. So do be getting your questions in, plenty of time to do that on the programme here, and Michael will choose the best and we'll get that sent out to you. So Michael, I have what seems maybe a bit of a simple question, but intrigued by it. On the book cover, there's the motif of the child's cycle, and it's lovely because it appears at various points throughout the book as well.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice, isn't it?
it is, and I wonder, you know, there could have been different motives there, you know, the notion of you know, the symbol of childhood, and maybe childhood innocence, you know, of being engaged in games or pastimes. Was the cycle, you know, was the cycle important to you as a young boy? Did you have your cycle? Did you go around on it?
Actually, no. I didn't learn to ride a bike until much later on, and it's funny the things you pick up from your parents, isn't it? I remember I have this memory of my dad saying to me that the bikes were dangerous and people got hurt, and that kind of scared me off. And even this is going to sound a bit soft, but even now, I'm wary on bicycles, and I've never had an accident on one. I've only ever had one bike, and that was when I was about 40, and it was too big for me. I couldn't reach the pedals. There's an admission.
I love the fact of having heard you say that. My reading now of that image is totally different, right?
Yeah,
So I, you know, I received the copy of the book and I'm thinking, oh, you know, innocence lost, childhood lost, all the you know, the excitement of having a bicycle. For you, it's like the danger.
yeah. It was an
You
object
know,
of fear. Yeah.
yeah, and it just brings a whole new, or maybe
Mm.
not, but just that different, you know, that different reading
I
that
never
can.
thought on that before. Actually, that's interesting. And the bicycle does have a part to play in the story.
Mm.
So, which I won't say anymore. Of.
Yeah. And just to come back again, if we can, to Dave, and how very easy it would be to find it hard to like anything about the sky. I mean, in the pieces that you read for us at the beginning, you know, a subject there who doesn't seem to be able to understand Amelie, and he doesn't seem to be able to keep her engaged. So what do we feel of him as, you know, does he deserve to have, you know, this amazing woman as his partner? But I love what you do, Michael, because you make us think again of how we, I'm going to say judge. It's not even appreciate someone, it's judge someone, you know, already with judging Dave. And is that fair? You know, to what extent is he responsible for this woman's happiness? Why would he be? So already there. But then when the news breaks or the allegation breaks, and I just wonder, how do you do it? Because you have this amazing knack of, we don't disengage from this character, and it would be so easy to do so. It would be so easy to think, he's vile.
Mm-hmm.
Because immediately the connotations are, ew. But you don't allow us to do that. Do you? I really wholeheartedly hold with what Mary was saying about, I don't think your work gets that recognition that it truly, truly deserves. Because I think you are the most amazing wordsmith. But not only that, the way that you and I won't say manipulate because that sounds negative, but you hold us. You hold us, and you prevent us from going down a certain way, which maybe we would if it weren't for your skill. Are you aware of you doing that when you write?
Not really. I think I can't even remember the process that was going through my head. I wanted to let the reader see Dave's vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
see a peek into his humanity, and then again let the reader be the judge. So I'm presenting information and I'm suggesting things. And I guess the fact that you won the heart of such an amazing woman in the first place gives you one impression. And then the fact that she's maybe, is she tiring of him, or is she tiring of ordinary life? Or is there something else at play here? So there's a lot going on in the stew. And I kind of just I'm aware that I'm making suggestions and perhaps leading you down one way and then going somewhere else. But the subtleties of it are, sometimes it feels almost accidental. But obviously, it's kind of like Stephen King talks about the boys in the boiler room. So that's the subconscious and how it's churning out all these ideas and stuff. And I find myself sometimes, I get to a point in the prose, because as I say, I don't plan, but I find myself getting to a point, and when I think that's why I did that, it's only apparent to me afterwards. So it's like there's my subconscious is working away in the background, throwing things up, and then it comes to a point in the story, and I realise, right, that's why that's there, and that's why it's working. So there's a subconscious process going on as well as a conscious process.
It's fascinating listening. It's almost like getting behind the tapestry, because because that image that is on the front, i.e. the text, you write in a way that doesn't let the reader go. So I would suggest to you that those guys and gals in your boiler room are just are working overtime and and producing just a text that is, it's weird, because is it bittersweet, is it is it two sides to a coin, because it's beautiful words that are engaged in something that is in issues that are just not pleasant. And it's lovely, they wrap you in, and they almost say, just stick in on the ride. There's going to be some tricky moments in this journey together, but stick in there. Rest in these words, because they'll carry you along to the end, and it's all going to be okay.
Well, I think there's an element there of the human in you is responding to the human in this fictional world, and that's something that I look for when I'm reading a book. It's that connection, and I think that's where, if you call it domestic noir or psychological thrillers or any of these books that deal with ordinary lives, and I think that's the plus that they offer the readers, is that connection. You don't quite get it when there's a super spy or a wizard or but whatever it is you're writing about, if you can find that human nugget within that character, tease that out, and then invite the reader in and bring their humanity, their experience of life to join, then you create something that's that's worth running with, kind of thing.
And if you had to sum up, okay, and I know it's very hard, but if you had to sum up to people who maybe haven't had the opportunity, to get their mitts on A Song of Isolation, what would be the one thing that you would say to them? So this isn't a pitch. I'm not asking you to do a pitch, because you've sold the book. But what would you want them to take away from this?
I think it's up to the reader. I think you bring yourself to the book, and everything that you watch, you read, it's all fed through the prism of your beliefs, your attitudes, your experiences, life, and that sort of affects how you respond, essentially. So I can only do so much. I put the words on the page, and it's up to you to bring yourself to that book. And I'm not responsible for the outcome. That's entirely up to you. So, and I just hope that when readers read this and they bring themselves to it, that it's a worthwhile experience, and it makes them think, but it also entertains them and helps them just get out of the humdrum of their lives for a wee while. And if I'm doing that, then I'm doing my job.
I would suggest that you most certainly are. People watching, if you haven't managed to get hold of a copy yet of A Song of Isolation, it is well worth, I would say, your time, your to be read pile. I would say get it to the top, because honestly, you will not regret this read. On behalf of Honey and Stag, we would like to thank you for watching. And for taking time out to be in the studio with Michael J Malone. Michael, Honey and Stag, Kelly and I wish you all the very best with A Song of Isolation.
Thank you.
And when time permits, I hope we can be together again soon.
Yeah, let it be soon. And thank you both, to you and Kelly, for putting this on. I really do appreciate it.
It is a pleasure, and please, we will ask you, as we've said, to choose your favourite question for people writing in.
Cool.
If that's okay with you.
Excellent,
excellent. So, thank you everybody for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again soon here on Honey and Stag for our digital launches and our conversations with authors that we think you should be getting to know or getting to know better. Goodbye for now.